Welcome to Astronomy Live. This morning, we're going to take a look at the famous winged star that was supposedly recently revealed on Google Sky. So I've set the telescope up, and we're now pointed at the coordinates that correspond to the supposed revelation of a winged star. Now, it's a real thing. It's a T-Tauri star and reflection nebula known as GN0539-2. But we're going to see if we can find it here. No, I don't want auto dark. Oh dear. Okay, good. That's continuing. Start the next picture. We're going to see if we can find it here with my telescope and see if it's doing anything unusual. Is it still where it should be? Is it moving? Is it stationary? What's the deal? So, give me a second here while I load up the Palomar Sky Survey plate for reference. So the way Google Sky works is that they didn't set up their own telescopes to take those pictures going to Google Sky. They just used pre-existing sky survey plates. And they recompress them and stitch them together, and the result is an image which is lower in quality than what you'll typically see with the original sky survey plates. But in this case, it's not a glitch caused by Google's processing. It actually is a real thing. It's just not Nibiru or Planet X or whatever. Okay, I think we've got it. Yeah. I'm just checking the reference image. But the interesting thing is that I don't really see much of the reflection nebula in the single exposures. I might need to do a lot deeper imaging than I had anticipated on this, which is kind of an interesting result. But the star that we're looking for is still located right where it was in the Google Sky images, and it's right here. And now I'll tell you what I'll do is I'll take the Palomar plate, and I'm going to put it into GIMP here and rotate it. The image here is rotated about 189 degrees from normal, just because of how the telescope inverts the image and how the camera is oriented and all of that. So I'm going to take the reference image, the Palomar Sky Survey plate, the very same one, in fact, that Google Sky used to create their all-sky mosaic. I'm going to rotate it 189 degrees so that it matches the orientation of my image. Okay. Where's my free rotate tool? There we go. Okay, let me move these toolboxes out of the way. Okay, this makes it really obvious to see where we're looking. I'm just going to change the mode here of screen sharing to full screen. All of mirrors. Okay. Oh, I forgot. I can't. Oh, I can do that. Okay. Sometimes if you minimize a window when screen sharing on Google Hangouts, it will stop screen sharing. But I minimized the Hangout window, and you're allowed to do that apparently, just not some other windows. I don't know. It's kind of screwy sometimes. Anyway, on the right side is the monochrome image from the Palomar Sky Survey, which is the very same one used by Google Sky. You can see these horizontal streaks. This is from a plane that flew over during the exposure. And you can actually see that in Google Sky. It just doesn't look as clear. And you can see the star we're interested in, this supposed Nibiru, this winged star right here. And then on the left-hand side is, of course, my image coming in from the telescope live. And you can see these stars here are these stars here. And there's the star of interest right there. It's the bottom one in this chain of three. These three bright stars. You have this really bright star over here. I forget which star this is, but it is a fairly major star in the HD catalog. And so if you like Google this on WikiSky or whatever, some people got confused and thought it was this star, that that was the designation for this, it seemed. But no, this is a very different star, and in fact, the reflection nebula that it's associated with is known as GN0539-2 in the Atlas of Galactic Nebulae. You can see that here. So there it is in the Aladdin view, which is also using the digitized sky survey of the Palomar plate. So it's the same, basically the same images. There's those streaks again. And there's the designation, the coordinates, all of that. So we are picking up the star for sure, but as for the reflection nebula, it's there, but man, is it faint, and we're only picking up the portion that's most proximal to the star itself. If you look very carefully, in the pixels just offset from the star are the wings, the brightest portion of the wings closest to the central star. I overestimated how bright that reflection nebula is actually going to be. So in order to pick up the full extent of it, I would really need to do some long exposures on this for a considerable period of time. It's already astronomical twilight now here. I didn't think I'd have to go for very long in order to pick this up, but I overestimated the brightness of this nebula. So in order to pick up the full extent of it, I really have to go at it for quite some time. And unfortunately, the star rises shortly before dawn. Well, rises high enough to make it suitable for imaging shortly before dawn. It's over the horizon well before dawn, but yeah, you want it to be well above the horizon before you try to image it, especially something as dim as this. So that's interesting. I might have to come back on an additional night and take more exposures of it. That's what that says. Let me take care of some technical issues here on the side. I need to plug in the laptop to a lithium battery. go. Okay, cool. It's plugged in now. Running the telescope's camera, running the webcast, all of that is surprisingly draining on the laptop's battery. Fortunately, I have all kinds of backup power. So that one came in pretty clear. That sub-exposure really kind of came in clear. You can start to see some of the wing on that end, especially. I know I'm zooming in without enhancing. This is not exactly CSI technology here, but I'm just blowing up the image for the sake of making it clear where the wings are on this star, because it can be hard to see, I'm sure, especially after streaming compression. It can be hard to see. Like I said, it's actually dimmer than I expected. So I'm going to have to take more exposures than I expected. I've collected 4 exposures so far. There's 3 on the current count, and then 1 additional where I accidentally had auto dark turned on, but I stopped it before it took the auto dark and just saved the non-dark frame subtracted image, because I'll apply the full dark frame library I have to these images, not just a single dark frame, in order to maximize the quality, which is really important, especially considering how dim the reflection nebula associated with the star is. Now, the T-Tauri star itself that you see here is a pre-main sequence star, and so it's by definition quite young, which is why T-Tauri stars are often associated with reflection nebulae like this. And if you recall a previous webcast I did on Parsamian 21, we saw a very similar reflection nebula associated with another young star, which was of the FU Orionis type, which is basically a subtype of T-Tauri star. They're cousins. The dynamics of the system are a little bit different, but they're both young stars. But this has kind of gone viral in the last month or two on YouTube and elsewhere, with people proclaiming that it's proof that Google is hiding Nibiru. I often get the question, okay, if it's not anything mysterious, then why was Google hiding it? Well, Google wasn't hiding it. The missing section of Google sky is in a very different location of the sky. We're currently, what constellation is this technically in? Oh, I'm not sure. It's near the constellation Taurus, sort of. We're off in that direction. Whereas the missing section of Google sky is to the left of Orion. So they're very different positions. The right ascension is similar, but the declination is quite different. But somebody decided to come along and tell a little lie about the star having been previously hidden on Google sky, when it's not in the missing section at all. It's not even close. And there have been videos about this star on YouTube for years now. So clearly it wasn't hidden. I'm going to pull up an article I saw a couple days ago about this. Give me a second. I have to pull this up for my Facebook. And sorry guys, I don't want you seeing my Facebook profile. Okay. Now I can screen share full screen. So I ran into a problem a couple weeks ago with Google Hangouts and webcasting, where it wasn't really working. I couldn't get it. I couldn't get a webcast to go because it seemed like YouTube had stopped linking Google Hangouts with YouTube. Used to be you could go straight onto the YouTube upload page and find a button to allow you to screen share, or actually do a Google Hangout right on YouTube. That button used to be right on the YouTube upload page. Well, they removed that and replaced it with the new streaming system, which I think is linked to the debut of the YouTube gaming streaming stuff. They basically allow you to use your own encoding software and stream directly to their servers with a passcode, whereas with Hangouts, it's all integrated. They provide all the software. Well, this was quite inconvenient for me on such short notice. I don't have streaming software. I finally did find a program about a week ago, but it turns out it requires a DirectX 10 video card, which this laptop doesn't have. I don't do gaming on this laptop. So that was also not an option. Fortunately, I found out if you go to the Google Plus page and you navigate to the Google Hangouts page, and then you navigate to the Hangouts on Air page, you can actually still do a Hangout on YouTube. You just have to go through the Google Plus page, which I never use. I didn't realize you could get to it from there. I've always just used it through YouTube, because that's what I mainly use this account for. So, but that was nice to find. So I am able to continue to do webcasting through Google Hangouts. I just have to go about it by going through the Google Plus page, which I suppose it makes sense, but it used to be you could get to it directly from YouTube, which was a lot fewer clicks. Anyway, it's nice to be back online again, that's for sure. So here's an article that came out, when was this? September 3rd, by Voice of Reason. Sounds like a reasonable guy, right? So basically, it's a long article, but he covers a variety of things, everything from the KCRA video from Sacramento back in January 2014. This date's wrong. The broadcast actually occurred about a week later, I think. But nevertheless, it showed something they didn't understand what it was. Their chopper zoomed in on a bright star off in the east in the pre-dawn hours, and they couldn't understand what it was. Their meteorologist couldn't identify it, but it had a phase to it. It looked kind of like a miniature moon. And it was Venus, but people say it couldn't have been Venus. The phase was way too thick to be Venus. So we're going to take a look at that as well this morning after we're done here on this object. So this is what we're looking at right now, which of course this article claims was now uncensored by Google. And I love this first line here. In the video below, what has long been suspected should now serve as confirmation even to the most uninformed skeptics out there. Oh yes. Yes, this must serve as confirmation of Nibiru or whatever. Well, I guess I'm a very informed skeptic, because it actually serves as confirmation that Google Sky has a reflection nebula in it, I guess, because it certainly doesn't serve as confirmation of anything else. Now, yes, it is a real object. Well, how do we know it's not really Nibiru? Well, keep in mind that the image shown on Google Sky and the image that I showed you, this image, was taken sometime in the 90s. And it's now roughly 20 years since this picture was taken. And the thing hasn't moved And in fact, you can go back to Palomar images from the 1950s, and the thing hasn't moved in all that time. Planets move, solar system objects move. Even if it were making a beeline straight for Earth, it would still move due to parallax as Earth orbits the Sun. Even if it were making a beeline straight for some sort of impact with Earth at a future date, we'd still see it wobbling back and forth in the sky quite a bit as Earth goes around the Sun. But that's not happening. It's still right where it was in the Palomar images. You can see these stars here. Oh, look, they're right here in my image. And they point right to the supposed winged star. The position of this T-Tauri star relative to the background stars has remained fixed. And that's why we know it's not a solar system object. It really is a distant nebula and star. Now, as I said, we've already hit astronomical twilight, and you could see in that latest image when it updated, the sky got a little bit bluer. So pretty soon, the daylight is going to start to wash out the nebula altogether, the reflection part of this nebula. But that's okay. We can always come back on a later night and image it some more until we get a nice, clean image that looks a lot like this image. If you look closely, you can actually see that the left side is actually a little bit brighter than the right side, which is why we were able to see that easier. But if necessary, I might actually try to image this at Chiefland this year. So the Chiefland Fall Star Party will be in mid-November, and I'll be going as usual. And the skies there are just splendid and dark. And so it provides the maximum possible contrast for low contrast objects like this, objects that are very dim and have very little contrast relative to just the background sky glow, whether it's light pollution or just ambient air sky glow. So to get the best possible imaging, I'll try this again at Chiefland this year and put some time on it and see what I can do. But we've seen that it hasn't moved. It's still right where it should be. And it's a real object, that's for sure. It's not some sort of internal camera reflection or telescope reflection or anything funky like that. It's not an artifact. It is a real thing. But it's also not moving. It's right where it was. So, after this picture completes in 3 minutes, I'm going to take down the deep space camera and put up the planetary camera, and we'll take a look at Venus, which is just now rising over the trees. Perfect timing. Alright, so I'm going to now take down the deep space camera and put on the planetary camera. We're going to take a look at Venus. So first of all, I need to let the camera warm up gently. You can see how blue the picture is now coming in from the morning twilight. Disconnect that. I'll leave it on. You know what? If you guys give me just a second, what I can do is I can do a quick stack, I think, on the pictures collected. You can just get a preliminary idea of what we were able to get. Oh man, fortunately this computer is not the fastest and it's not happy with me right now. I'm asking it to do 5 things at once. Okay. Okay, we collected half an hour of light, which, you know, it's not the best. I like to get at least an hour on anything I shoot, but it'll do. Okay. I'm not going to do flat subtraction or anything like that. I don't have flat frames yet. That's actually something I should. Oh, choices. I'll get it next time, I guess. It's really something I should wait and get it today, but I'm not going to. Okay, it's doing the stacking now. I'm going to start getting the camera changed over in the meantime. morning twilight is setting in very rapidly. There's some morning cloud cover coming in too. If I hurry, I think we can at least get Venus for a little bit. Wow. Kick the tripod. Well, yikes, it's really muddy out here right now. We had some pretty good rain the last few days, and it takes this place a while to dry off. And so it's still really, really muddy. And I fear in kicking the tripod even slightly, that probably threw off the line. Just hope it didn't throw it off so much that it makes it difficult to get the camera centered on Venus. I don't think it will, and it's not like a super accurate polar alignment is necessary to track a planet. We had a really good polar alignment. Titari star, but don't necessarily need it to still be super accurate for Venus. In fact, to some extent, polar alignment is almost undesirable in this case, simply because of what I'm trying to demonstrate, which is an effect similar to what was seen in the KCRA Sacramento video that the article is referring to. Now, in that video, of course, it was being shot from a helicopter, which is not a telescope, and it's not polar aligned. So the crescent of Venus can look quite tilted. Field rotation, except to the extent that I kicked them out just now, will not be a factor. Okay, I'm gonna leave that for the time. I was gonna take out, put away all the camera's parts, but there's a little problem with that idea. I've got equipment sitting on top of cables that I would have to remove to get to. Just wait until I'm done here today. Loose piece. What do I do? Just that. Oh, good grief. What did I do with it? Oh, here it is. Down on the table. Star diagonal back on. Actually, that's a good point. With the star diagonal on, the view orientation is not going to be the same as it was in the deep space camera. It's also a lot harder to get the camera perfectly aligned so that it's orthogonal to the celestial equator, but whatever, it'll do. Okay, now here's the other question. I'm going to plug it in, I guess. I can unplug the S-Big camera. Cool. So that power adapter can come out, and this one can go in. Oh, I'm also going to need apologies. I'm juggling two very different cameras here. Okay. Hope this works. There's a small chance that Google Hangouts won't like the fact that I just plugged in a video capture card, because this is actually an analog camera. Well, it's digital in the sense that it has a CCD, but it puts out an analog signal. It's a modified Samsung SDC 435. And Google Hangouts may not recognize the capture card because I've just now plugged it in. Let's see. Please work. That's plugged in. Let's see what the story is. Turn off screen share. Yay. Okay, it works. Let's see how badly I might have kicked them out. Alright, tell you what. Zoom to the moon. The moon will be a lot easier to find than a star, which provides suitable focusing. Yay! We're not that bad out of the line. Just put it on the moon. Just get it to focus. Oh, yeah. No, this is right. There's the moon. Beautiful crescent moon this morning, huh? Okay, let's see if we can find this. Beautiful. So, it was a morning quite like this morning when the KCRA chopper pointed its camera to Venus. And it saw something very similar to what you're seeing now, which confused a lot of people, because that's not the phase Venus is supposed to be, right? It's actually a much thinner crescent. If I take the exposure and make it much faster, you can see Venus's true shape. You can see there how thin that crescent is, like a tiny little piece of a thumbnail. It's just a very thin crescent. Let's see, what does SkySpot say on the expected phase of Venus right now? Just because I don't have my Venus calculation spreadsheet handy at the moment. Excuse me. Right, so according to Sky Safari, Venus should currently be about 16% illuminated. But if you start to overexpose it right here at this level, you can see there's a little bit of blueness right there at the edge of the crescent. We're just starting to overexpose the crescent of Venus. If you go further than that, if you overexpose it, you can artificially cause it to look thicker than it really is. Much thicker. I can even go more extreme. See how bright and thick Venus looks. Now, I think the KCRA video, if I remember, I'm going off memory here, but I think it was more like this. And this phenomenon is exactly what was happening in that news chopper video. Probably part of the reason why no one recognized it, even if they had been familiar with Venus and what Venus was supposed to look like that morning. If they weren't familiar with the effect of overexposure that was happening in their video, they might have ruled out Venus, because Venus was just supposed to be a very thin crescent, not sort of a Pac-Man shape like this, where it's quite full looking. And of course, if you go to an absolute extreme of overexposure, you can make Venus so bright that you can't even tell what the phase is anymore. It's actually still a crescent, but because I've overexposed it here so much, it just looks circular. It looks like it must be full. Well, the shape here does not tell you the true shape of Venus, because Venus is completely overexposed. But even this, somewhat confusingly to people, even this is overexposed, which is why it looks significantly thicker than it should. You can see my exposure settings here, 1/116,000th of a second. It's a very, very fast exposure. But a normal camera, in fact, normal camera like this one, a normal camera on automatic settings is going to actually overexpose Venus. You might be thinking, well, why would the camera be setting itself to overexpose Venus? Shouldn't it automatically control its exposure and make it look proper? Well, a normal camera, the way it evaluates the lighting of the scene, is very confused by this situation. And this is actually a modified normal camera, but the software is still the original software. So right now, it's actually an automatic exposure setting. And you can see it's still overexposing Venus. It's still choosing that 1/60th of a second exposure. Because what it sees is that everything around here is black. Venus makes up a very small portion of the video. It makes up a very small portion of the view. And so in terms of graphing the distribution of pixels, most of them are black. And it thinks this is a problem because it was designed to record daylit views. It wasn't designed for astrophotography. It's been modified for that purpose, but the software hasn't. So it sees this scene, it thinks it's underexposing it even now, and so it's cranked up the exposure to the maximum, which in this case is 1/60th of a second. Now, if I set it to a different mode, it'll actually go even beyond that. But I've walled off the longer exposure settings past 1/60th of a second. But it thinks this is underexposed right here. That's why it's choosing this exposure setting. It's actually, in truth, overexposing Venus. And that's why it looked like that. So I hope that answers a lot of questions. And really, that's all I have for today. Tell you what, one more time before we go, because I only showed the moon very, very briefly, and it really is beautiful this morning. We'll close out with a quick look at the moon. Here. Beautiful. Now you can see how much brighter, how much more reflective Venus is than the moon. At 1/60th of a second, we could still see pretty much all of the moon's details, but Venus is completely overexposed by that setting. So it's kind of interesting to take a look at. But I'll let you guys just enjoy some views of the moon here. I can't fit all of it in this camera from the main telescope. I suppose I could throw it on the other telescope, but you wouldn't see as much detail then. While it's sitting there, I'm going to quickly finish processing stacked image. Let's see what we got. Oh, that's quite good, actually. Better than I was expecting, to be honest, given what we were seeing with the individual exposures. It's still a little cloudy, it's still a little noisy. It could definitely use more exposures, more time. But you can start to see the wings and the reflection nebula for sure. So I tell you what, I'm going to, yeah, I'm going to rotate this 189. Oh, you're not allowed to do that. Oh, okay. Sure. Okay, keep in mind I haven't done flat field subtraction, so the dust spots on the camera haven't been removed. And I'm going to do a little bit more contrast enhancement here just to make it more apparent. Yeah, it's not bad. Considering this is only 30 minutes of data, it's not bad. Like I said, it'll require a little more data, a little more light for more exposures, which I'll grab later. But it may not even be necessary really to do this at Chiefland. It seems like I'm able to get the full extent of it here. It's just a bit noisy at the moment. Okay. I think that's pretty good, actually. Okay. Enough of the suspense, right? I'll show you guys what we came up with here. Where is my broadcast window? Okay, let's screen share. Full screen. Okay, so here is our stacked and processed image. Like I said, I haven't done flat field subtraction, so there's still a couple dust spots here, these dark donut circles, and then there's a couple straggling hot pixels. I'm not sure how old these dark frames are, but you get the idea. So here's my image, and here's the infamous Google Sky image right here. You can see the star and its wings, the reflection nebula, are exactly where they are in the Google Sky image. It hasn't moved at all. So nothing to fear. It's not Nibiru. It's not Planet X. It's not any object in the solar system. It actually is a very distant star and reflection nebula. And when I had some more time on this, like I said, this is only 30 minutes of light, which is a pretty short period of time to capture any deep space object. When I had some more time on it, it'll become a little bit clearer. There's a lot of noise still in the image, which is why it looks so grainy here. But as I add more exposures, the graininess will go away, and it'll average out to a nice, clear image of the nebula. So I'll do that some other time. It's still early in the season, if you will, for this particular object because of when it rises. But you can definitely see it there. It's definitely there. It's a real thing. It's just not a planet, and it's not some sort of solar system object. So I hope that answers a lot of your questions and puts some minds at ease. Thanks all for watching. Clear skies, folks. Have a nice day.